The demon was asleep. That is how the story wants you to see him first, not roaring in battle, not charging through a city gate, sleeping, drunk, enormous, surrounded by the remains of a feast in a mountain hall. Around him stood men who had entered as holy travelers. They had eaten his food. They had accepted his hospitality. They had waited until the sake did its work. Now the disguise was almost over. One of them held the sword that later tradition would remember by a name, Dojigiri, the demon cutter. In the legend, that blade would end Shuten-doji, the drunken Oni who terrified Kyoto. But this is not a police report from a monster hunt. It is a true legend, not a request to treat an Oni as documented fact. The real question is stranger than that. Why did medieval Japan imagine fear in this shape? Why a capital full of courtiers and ritual specialists, a mountain beyond the city's control, warriors dressed as monks, sake turned into a weapon, and a severed head that still tried to bite? Onimusha, Way of the Sword, is bringing demon-haunted Kyoto back into the global spotlight. Its hero is Minamoto Musashi, but Musashi is not the story we are following here. We are following the older shadow behind the screen, the legend of Shuten-doji and the sword that killed an Oni. Onimusha, Way of the Sword, is set in Edo-period Kyoto, twisted by supernatural violence. Capcom's version sends Miyamoto Musashi through a dark fantasy world of genma, malice, and sword combat. That is the search hook. It is not the source. The older roots run into Japanese demon lore, warrior legend, illustrated hand scrolls, and the long life of the Oni in Japanese imagination. Shuten-doji is one of the most famous of those Oni. His name is often understood as the drunken boy or drunken youth, though nothing about him is small once the tale reaches the mountain. He is a giant, a drinker, a kidnapper in the story, and a ruler of a terrifying world outside courtly order. The Shuten-doji legend is often connected with the tale of Mount Oe, and museum records place the legend's formation in the Muromachi period. Later hand scrolls, screens, and printed books show that the story was not a single frozen text. It changed across time, artists, and patrons. Some versions are courtly and elegant. Some are more grotesque. Some emphasize divine help. Some linger on the violence. The basic shape remained powerful because it could be retold for different audiences without losing its core fear. Kyoto is threatened. The court cannot ignore it. A warrior named Minamoto no Yorimitsu, often called Raikou, goes with his retainers to confront the monster. They do not win by simply meeting force with force. They enter in disguise. They use a drink. They strike when the Oni is vulnerable. And after the blade falls, the monster's head still carries danger. That is why this is not just a sword story. It is a story about boundaries. Kyoto stands for order, ceremony, rank, refinement, and the belief that the world can be named. The mountain stands for what that order cannot fully absorb. When the tale sends warriors from the city toward the demon's lair, it is also sending fear out of the human world and asking whether violence can ever truly remove it. In the legend, the crisis begins in the capital. Young noblewomen vanish. Families panic. The court looks for an explanation that is larger than ordinary crime. Depending on the version, divination, dreams, priests, or famous ritual specialists help reveal that the danger comes from a demon in the mountains. Some tellings bring Abe no Seimei into the orbit of the story, which shows how strongly the legend belongs to a world where court politics, ritual knowledge, and supernatural fear overlap. But even here, careful language matters. The tale does not give us modern evidence of abductions by a literal Oni. It gives us a medieval imagination of public fear. That fear is gendered, aristocratic, and political. The missing women are not random details. They make the capital feel violated at its most protected level. Noble households, lineage, marriage, reputation, and the private interior spaces of elite life. A monster that steals from those spaces is not only dangerous. He humiliates the order that claimed it could protect them. The courtly world had screens, gates, ranks, rituals, and beautiful language for almost everything. Shuten-doji is frightening because he suggests that all of those refinements can be bypassed by appetite. So the court needs a champion. In the story, that champion is Minamoto no Yorimitsu. He belongs to the warrior world, but he serves the capital's need. He and his retainers are not simply wandering heroes. They are the force sent when ritual diagnosis becomes a mission. This is one reason Shuten-doji lasts as a legend. He is not a random beast in a forest. He is the answer to a question the city cannot ask calmly. What if the world outside the gate can reach inside the room? What if rank, poetry, silk, screens, and guards are not enough? The Oni gives fear a body and lets the tale send warriors toward it. The journey matters because the legend is built on crossing a line. The tale pushes fear out of Kyoto, west and north, toward the Mount Oa tradition, while other versions and related traditions pull the demon's origin toward Mount Ibuki. That geography should not be treated like a verified military route. It is legend geography, places where the known world thins out, where courtly order meets forest, ridge, shrine path, and dangerous hospitality. Yorimitsu and his companions do not march openly as warriors in every telling. They often travel in Yamabushi disguise, dressed like mountain ascetics. That detail is important. A demon's lair cannot be entered by ordinary social identity. The warriors have to pass through a religious and performative mask. They look like holy men, travelers between worlds, people who can move through mountains without seeming out of place. Along the road, some versions give them help from deities or mysterious old men. Again, the point is not to prove divine intervention. The point is that the tale imagines the mission as more than a raid. It is a ritual crossing. The city cannot defeat the mountain by remaining exactly itself. It must borrow the mountain's language, travel dress, piety, disguise, gifts, and patience. The disguises also slow the story down in a useful way. They make the audience wait for the violence, and that waiting is part of the dread. We know the travelers are armed, but the Oni does not yet see what kind of guests he has invited inside. That is why the approach to Shuten-doji feels almost like entering a court in reverse. There is protocol, but it is dangerous. There is hospitality, but it may be a trap. There is drinking, but drinking will become a weapon. Every step away from Kyoto changes the rules. By the time the warriors reach the demon's hall, they are not only approaching a monster. They are entering a distorted mirror of aristocratic life, where rank becomes terror, feast becomes threat, and the host may be the thing that eats the guest. Shuten-doji has power in the story that is not only physical. He presides. He hosts. He drinks, he rules a hall that can look, in painted versions, grotesque and magnificent at the same time. That mixture is the heart of the episode. If the Oni were only a wild animal, the story would be simpler. Instead, he has a court of his own. He has followers. He has a palace-like space in the mountain. He has appetite, wealth, and ceremony turned inside out. When Yorimitsu and his companions enter, They survive because they understand that force alone is not yet possible. They speak carefully, they accept the role of guests. They watch. They wait, then comes the sake. In the legend, special sake helps weaken or intoxicate Shuten-doji and the other Oni. It is one of the story's most disturbing reversals. Hospitality, the thing that should bind host and guest, becomes the mechanism of betrayal. But the betrayal is aimed at a being who has already broken the human order. The tale asks the audience to accept a moral exception. Deception is permitted because the monster's own world is founded on predation. This is where modern narration can easily go wrong. If we tell it as simple heroic trickery, we lose the unease. If we tell it as pure horror, we lose the ritual intelligence. The scene works because both things are true inside the tale. The warriors are brave, but they are also deceivers. The Oni is monstrous, but he is also a host. The drink is a gift, and it is a weapon. The hall is a refuge, and it is a killing ground. That layered discomfort is why Shuten-doji is better than a generic demon. He is not just something outside society. He is society's customs made frightening: feasting, rank, drinking, guesthood, masculinity, and power, all glowing under torchlight until the rules break. At the center of the legend sits a real object with a legendary name. Dojigiri Yasutsuna is a celebrated Japanese sword, a tachi signed by Yasutsuna of Hoki, and dated by the Tokyo National Museum to the Heian period, roughly the 10th to 12th century. The sword's later fame is tied to the story that Minamoto no Yorimitsu used it to bring down Shuten-doji of Mount Oe. The museum record itself keeps the layers separate. It identifies the sword, its maker, and its later ownership history, and it notes that an Edo-period sword manual records the legend connecting the blade to Shuten-doji. That distinction is exactly what this episode needs. The sword is real. The association is legendary. The power comes from the crossing between the two. It gives the audience something solid to look at without forcing the narrator to pretend that folklore and documentary evidence are the same thing. In the tale, once Shuten-doji is drunk and sleeping, Yorimitsu strikes. Later images and retellings can dwell on the decapitation, but our focus is the symbolic shock. The monster's body is vulnerable only after disguise, ritual, drink, and timing have all done their work. The blade is the final act, not the whole strategy. That is why the sword is so memorable. It is not just a weapon. It is the clean line the story draws after many forms of uncertainty: missing women, doubtful roads, disguised identities, dangerous hospitality, and a sleeping host who is also a monster. Then comes the detail that makes the legend unforgettable. Even after the head is severed, the head of Shuten-doji flies or lunges at Yorimitsu and tries to bite him. In some tellings, the hero survives because he is protected by helmets or divine aid. The image is grotesque, but its meaning is precise. Killing the monster does not instantly silence what the monster represents. Fear can survive the blow meant to end it. A head without a body is no longer a ruler, no longer a host, no longer a giant feasting in his hall. But it can still accuse. It can still warn. It can still make the hero defend himself one more time. That final bite is the legend's dark intelligence. So what was Shuten-doji? The safest answer is also the richest. He was a legend, and legends carry more than one thing at once. Some interpretations have seen in him the memory of bandits, outlaws, or violent groups on the margins of state power. The e-museum entry for Dojigiri even notes the idea of Shuten-doji as either a demon or a highwayman in the legendary tradition. Other readings focus on boundaries, capital and mountain, court and wilderness, noble interior and dangerous road, human host and monstrous appetite. Religious imagination also matters. Yamabushi disguise, divine helpers, and ritual knowledge do not sit beside the story as decorations. They tell us that this is a world where violence, purity, pilgrimage, and supernatural danger overlap. None of these readings has to cancel the others. A good legend survives because it can hold several fears in one body. Shuten-doji can be an Oni, an outlaw memory, a warning about appetite, a fantasy of the court defeating what it cannot govern, and a spectacular subject for painters. That last part matters. The story lived because artists made it visible. Handscrolls could move the viewer scene by scene. Kyoto's fear, the road, the lair, the feast, the strike, the aftermath. The handscroll form matters because it does not reveal everything at once. The viewer advances through time by unrolling the image, discovering the next danger only when the surface opens. That is almost exactly how a legend preserves suspense. Later literature, theater, prints, museum collections, games, and anime-like dark fantasy all inherit pieces of that visual grammar. When a modern game fills Kyoto with demons, it is not simply inventing a mood from nothing. It is stepping into a much older habit of imagining the city as beautiful, ordered, and haunted by what waits beyond the gate. That does not make Onimusha a retelling of Shuten-doji. It means the game moves through named swords, hungry One, threshold-crossing heroes, and old fears returning in new armor. Return to the sleeping chamber. At first, it looked like the end of a monster story. The demon drinks. The warriors wait. The sword rises. The body falls. Order returns to Kyoto. But Shuten-doji is not remembered because the ending is clean. He is remembered because the ending refuses to be clean. The head still bites. The hero still needs protection. The thing that was killed still has one last motion left in it. That is why the legend keeps working centuries later. It understands something simple and uncomfortable. Societies can defeat a threat in story form and still remain haunted by the reasons they imagined it. Kyoto needed the mountain because fear had to be placed somewhere. The warriors needed disguise because ordinary authority could not walk into the hall of the Oni unchanged. The sake mattered because the monster's own feast had to be turned against him. The sword mattered because memory loves an object it can point to and name. Dojigiri Yasutsuna gives the legend a blade-shaped anchor in the real world, while Shuten-doji gives the blade a shadow large enough to last. That is the power of a true legend. It is not true because every supernatural image can be verified. It is true because real people preserved it, painted it, performed it, treasured objects through it, and kept using it to think about fear. So when Onimusha returns to a demon-haunted Kyoto, the older question comes with it. Not whether every monster on the screen was real. Not whether an Oni can be proven like a date on a document. The question is why the image still feels legible. A beautiful city, a dangerous mountain, a cup of sake, a sword in the dark, and a severed head still trying to speak. The blade ends the action. The legend keeps the fear alive long after the blade falls.